This is a Raspberry Swirl Brioche. It's a sweet bread. It's absolutely delicious with coffee or tea. It doesn't have to be raspberry if you want. You can make it with strawberry or blueberry, almond. There's a lot of different flavors that you can put into this. We're going to start with our mixer, and in the mixer I have 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to add 1/4 cup of regular sugar. Get it all in there. 2 teaspoons of salt. Everything seems to be sticking today. And 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And I buy my yeast in bulk and I keep it in a jar in the refrigerator, and it keeps very well for me. I'm also going to be adding at this time, as soon as I mix this up, 4 eggs and 1/3 cup of warm or room temperature milk. So I'm going to start this off with my paddle attachment. I'm just going to mix it without any wet ingredients, just to get those dry ingredients mixed together. Then I'll add the eggs and then the milk. Yeah, that's mixed. Start putting in the eggs one by one. Now the milk. I'm stopping it for a moment just so that I don't have the noise when I'm talking to you. But I'm going to put this mixer back on a medium-low, and I'm going to let it go for about 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. Just let it keep beating. Go off, do something, wash some dishes, whatever you need to do, and come back and I'll show you what we do next. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the paddle off, and I'm going to switch to the dough hook before I let it go for that 5 or 6 minutes. So take that off. Back on, dough hook. And now 5 or 6 minutes. So I've had that going now for about 6 minutes, and I'm going to stop it for a minute and take it off of here, because what I want to do now is I want to zest a lemon. I want the zest of 1 lemon, or, eyeball it, 3/4 of a lemon, whatever. And don't think I'm going to waste this lemon. I'm not going to throw it away or anything like that, because I'm going to need actually some of the lemon juice in the filling that we're going to make for this brioche. So I will squeeze it out later and we'll use it. Just don't want to get any of the white part in there. Okay, that's good. Now what I also have is 3/4 cups, 1.5 sticks of very soft butter. And that's going to go into the mixer. I'm going to put it in like a tablespoon at a time and let it mix in. It's going to get really a gloppy mess in there. And that's okay. It'll work out. And periodically I will stop it and scrape down the sides, because in these mixers they're great, but everything gets pushed to the side. You really want it to get incorporated into the dough. So we'll do that, and then after we get all the butter in there, we're going to let it go for another 5 or 6 minutes, just working away. And that's what makes this dough so tasty in the end. Okay, I'll start it up to get that lemon zest in there, and then I'll gradually start adding the butter. stop it for a moment, scrape down my sides. Right now you look at this in here and you say, that's never going to come together, but it will. It's going to be a really sticky dough, but it will come together. So now, about 5 or 6 minutes. It's been about 6.5 minutes. I let it go just a little bit longer. If you get to this point and you've mixed it for about 6 minutes and it is still not forming any kind of a dough, it's all over the place and gloppy, you can sprinkle in 2 or 3 more tablespoons of flour and try to see if that sucks up some of that moisture and makes it a little bit more like a ball of dough. But try not to add too much flour because the butter really needs to be in there. This is a sticky dough and it has to be. You're going to see when I roll out this dough and fill it and try to braid it, it's going to be difficult because it's very sticky. But we'll see how it goes. But it still will taste good, trust me. So we need a big bowl. Spray it with some kind of cooking spray, or you can lightly oil it with your hands with vegetable oil. Okay, let's take this off. Okay, and now I'm going to just scrape off that dough hook. And then I'm going to dump this into the bowl and just push it down. Now, you can see I'm touching it. It's not sticking to my hands, but it feels sticky. Now, I'm going to cover this with a piece of plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave this at room temperature for about 1 hour and let it rise. It's not going to rise tremendously like to the top of the bowl. Conversely, you can also do this as a cool rise. Make this the day before you want it. Cover it just like this and put it in your refrigerator overnight. It'll rise slowly, it'll be a little bit harder, but it'll be just as easy to work with and it'll come out just fine. I've done it both ways. So what I will do is I'll take this, I'll put it aside, and give me a couple of minutes to clean up, and then I'll show you how to make the filling, because the filling needs to go into the refrigerator for about a half an hour. Another point, after this has risen for about an hour at room temperature, and you haven't done it overnight, you then need to put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes before you roll it out. It'll make the dough a lot easier to work with. So, be back in a minute. While our brioche dough is rising, we'll make the filling because that's got to sit in the refrigerator for at least a half an hour. In my pot here, I have 1 12-ounce jar of seedless raspberry jam, just regular jam that you buy in the supermarket. I use seedless. You don't have to use seedless. Your filling wants seeds in it, you put seeds in it. If you want strawberry, use strawberry. If you want blueberry, use blueberry here. It's up to you. But I happen to love raspberry. So what I've done is I've emptied the jar in here, and I'm heating it up till I can get all the chunks out of it, and it's nice and smooth now. And to that, I'm going to add, from that lemon that we used the zest, 2 tablespoons of the juice and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. You want to get all of that out. And we're going to cook this over this medium heat for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to blend all the cornstarch and the juice and just make this slightly thicker than it is right now. And then we'll pour it into another dish and we'll cover it up and put it in the refrigerator for half an hour until we're ready to use it. So let me just cook this. Got to get rid of all those lumps in the cornstarch. If for some reason your cornstarch stays lumpy and you can't get rid of those lumps, strain it before you put it into the bowl. All right, that looks like it's thickened up a little bit more. I think I have all the lumps out of it. I don't see any pieces. So now we'll just take this off. I turn the burner off, and I'm going to pour it into a bowl. Cover it with some plastic wrap, and into the refrigerator it will go until we're ready to use it. So now all we have to do is wait for our dough to finish rising. All right, so the fun begins. Our dough is risen. I let it rise till it got this big, and then I put it in the refrigerator for that half an hour that I told you about, just to get it a little cooled down. It's easier to handle. I've chosen today to use this bread pan, and it is an oversized in length bread pan. This is a 15 by 4.5. I greased it and I lined it with parchment paper, put some clips on it just to hold the parchment down so it's easier for me to lift the loaf in. I'll take those out before I put this in the oven. Now, I'm not going to use all of this dough. This dough, I could make 2 loaves like that probably. And same thing if you're using a regular shorter loaf pan. You're probably only going to use about half of it. What you can do with the other half is you can make dinner rolls, just roll them up and you can bake them off. And that's a good thing to do with them too. So I'm going to take this out of the bowl. And I'm going to put this bowl somewhere aside. And then I am going to get my trusty pin. Now my pan is 15 in length, so I've got another great kitchen tool that I use so I can measure out the length of it. And let's roll. Very easy to roll this dough. Especially since you put it in the refrigerator to cool down. Whoops. Okay, let's see where we are. A little over 15. And I don't want it too thick because it's going to fill that pan and it'll overflow in the oven if it's too much dough in there. So I'm going to just roll it out bigger. Like I said, I'm going to make some rolls out of this. Or if you have some small bread pans, you can take the excess and just make little loaves, and then great for French toast. Okay, let's go here. I'm going to take that much off. Put that aside for later. That much off. Okay, a little more. Now, I want it facing me this way because I'm going to roll it the long way. Okay, just another trim, a little bit over here. Okay, get my brush, take off the excess. And now I also have an egg wash, which is nothing more than a whole egg and a little bit of water. And I'm only going to put this around the edges because that's going to seal up the dough, keep the filling in. And then here's our filling. Spread that not to the edges, but up to that egg wash line. Told you this is going to get messy. I told you that before. Okay. And now I'm going to roll it up. And we have goo coming out. Okay. Now, if you're brave, the actual recipe calls for slitting it down this way and braiding it before you put it in the pan. Again, this is why it's messy. But I'm going to give it a shot. I'm not going to cut it to the end because this will hold together. Just lightly. Really, once this rises, you're not even going to see all of that mess. But give me 1 second, please. Okay, let's get some of this stuff out of the way. I'm going to bring my bread pan over. Now, how do you pick this up? Well, you could pick it up that way. You could use a couple of spatulas. I'm going to try using my big spatula here. There. Now, doesn't look like much. It'll look a lot better once it rises. And before it goes in the oven, we're going to give it an egg wash and finish the top. So I'll come back. This has got to sit now for about, excuse me, I have something stuck in my throat. This is going to have to sit at room temperature for about an hour to rise, especially since we put that filling in there. That kind of holds it down a little bit, so it's going to take a little while before it rises. So I'll come back and show you how to finish it, and then we'll bake it. Time to finish off the Raspberry Swirl Brioche and get it into the oven. Now, I'm sure you thought when I was putting this together before what a gloppy mess it was all over the counter and everything like that. Yeah, it was, but it works out fine. It's about doubled. A reason it's really not crusting the thing is I used far less dough, plus the raspberry weighs it down a little bit, so don't get upset. It's still going to rise more in the oven. So now I'm going to egg wash it. And my oven, I lightly egg washed because this is full of air right now and I don't want to deflate it. My oven's at 350 degrees and we're going to put this in for 20 minutes. I'm going to cover it with foil because it'll get too brown otherwise, and then I'm going to leave it in there for another 35 to 45 minutes. Now, egg washed. Now I want to put something sweet on top of it. So let's talk about our options. I have some of this pearl sugar, which is really cool. I love it on Danish and stuff like that because it stays whole, it doesn't melt, and it looks really pretty on top of things. If you don't have any of that, this is readily available at cake supply places and a lot of places online, not expensive at all. Now, if you don't have that, maybe you have some coarse sugar for making when you're making sugar cookies. And that is also something you can use. But again, I'm going to use this today because I have it and I like the way it looks. So I'm going to just sprinkle this on top, and it'll stick because of the egg wash. When it comes out, you're going to notice it because it's going to look really pretty on top, and it adds that little extra crunch of sweetness when you bite into this bread later. Okay, 350. Oh, got to take the clips off. 350 for 20 minutes, foil, and then another 35 to 45 minutes. Put it on a timer. Now remember that dough that I had left over that I cut off the ends? I told you I wasn't going to waste it. Well, we're not. I brought it all together and I kneaded it, and then I formed it into little brioche rolls. I got 6 of them out of this. And what I'm going to do with these, as soon as those come out of the oven, because I don't want them in at the same time because they're different baking times. I might put them in, I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to egg wash these, and then I'm going to put some coarse salt on these because these are rolls. These are not sweet rolls. I'm using these like for dinner rolls. And there I have my coarse salt, and you can see the coarse salt looks very similar to the coarse sugar. It's just a tad bit bigger. And I'm going to put that on top, and I'm going to have some lovely rolls. So stay tuned, and I will come back and I will show you everything as it comes out of the oven and how wonderful it looks. Here's our brioche swirl out of the oven. You can see it grew. It looks really nice. It smells wonderful. It's been out of the oven now for about 15 minutes. So I can take it out of the pan now. This is another bonus if you use the parchment paper because it's easy to pick up. It's way too warm to cut at this point, but we'll show it at the end of the program. We'll show you a cut slice. And here are our bonus rolls ready for our dinner tonight. These just came out of the oven, so they are really, really hot. So you saw how difficult it was, not very. It really tastes delicious. You can make 2 things out of it, or you could have made 1 large loaf and 1 small loaf. So give it a shot.